So a friend of mine wanted me to talk about Alex Jones and libertarians again. And, it got me to thinking about how a lot of conspiracy buffs consider themselves libertarians. And how, in general, the internet seems to lean toward libertarianism. And, I see this problem in communism too, but it's different. In communism, there's basically two camps, and they don't like each other. And that's the communists, and then there's the Trotskyists. I know I'm kind of giving a heavy hand out to the Trotskyists, but Trotskyists don't like anybody. They don't like Maoists, they don't like Stalinists, they don't like Marxist-Leninists. They think it's either their way or the highway. So, yeah, I think you're the problem. But anyway, the point is, every political side has its own internal monologue, its own, inner politics within that bickers and differs. The difference is, however, that libertarianism tries to complicate itself and make itself out to be this very intellectual belief system when all it comes down to is either liberal republicanism or confederacy. That's it. The only way to be a libertarian is to either be a liberal capitalist that believes, in the free market and big businesses know what's up, and on the same token you want gay marriage and smoking pot, or you believe in states' rights on everything. And then you believe a state within the nation is its own superorganism that is completely isolated from the rest of the states, and that somehow you want this series of nations within nations. That's the only two planks of the libertarian platform. Throughout history, throughout their party platform, throughout fucking everything, that is all libertarians have been arguing. Liberal capitalism and confederacy. So, what do you want out of us? What do you want us to think you are if that's all you are? There are implications to communism because communism is pragmatic. Communism is about transitioning away from capitalism entirely. Whereas libertarianism is just like, well, this is what we believe, and if you believe different, then, you are a fascist dictator. So, this is why I can't take libertarians seriously. And I can't take libertarians seriously either, because of the fact that they think we're the tyrannical ones, even though they basically just replace capitalism with all the ideas that socialist revolutionaries worked very, very hard for. They seem to think that in free market capitalism, if there just wasn't a mean old government getting between us, that everyone would get along and trade with one another and we'd all live happily ever after. How do you expect that to happen? Have you been on the internet lately? The internet is a free market. There's no government regulation on the internet. There's no accountability on the internet. If you run a business online, then you can basically do whatever the fuck you want to. And proof is everybody bans each other, everybody hacks each other, harasses each other, attacks each other, mutilates one another. It's a very hostile environment, especially at libertarian-oriented forums, where they do not seem to care about your rights as an individual. Oh, individualism, individual accountability, individual rights. Suddenly, that doesn't mean what they always said it means when it's their forum, when it's their property. But then they want to turn around and say that no, property isn't based off violence and coercion. Well, then what is it? How did we get where we are today to have property? Think about that for a minute. Did somebody just look around and say, well, there's nobody else here, I guess this is my land? No. What happened is some self-entitled prehistoric moderators decided that they liked this land. It had lots of cute animals to eat or to make into pets, and they had clean water and food to eat and everything. And they were like, this is going to be my land. And if anybody thinks differently, I'll fucking kill them. That's how property was invented. Property was invented by bloodshed, rape, murder, pillaging, purging all life that was not them. And so, that's how it continued. We have just done so differently throughout history. Nowadays, we don't authentically kill one another usually. Sometimes we do. But first and foremost, we threaten each other with legalese. We threaten each other, with contracts and obligations. Most of it is in our brains. Most of it is we think we are obligated to follow these rules and these sanctions, and that's how they enforce property. More so than just killing people, because that's kind of inefficient nowadays. It would be too much work for the bourgeois to just kill everybody that disagreed with them. But if they can convince the proletariat that, they owe it to the bourgeois, that they owe their labor to the bourgeois, and that they aren't entitled to anything, well, then that just does all the work for them. And that's what capitalism comes down to. I'll put it to you this way. If I'm really free as an individual, why the fuck can't I just post on a forum? I don't want to get into all this bullshit about how it's your forum and it's your right to run it however you want to. As a human being endowed with inalienable rights, as a unique creature, there will be no other Jim Prophet. This is the only Jim Prophet. Why am I not entitled to my freedom of speech? Why am I not entitled to transgress where I want to transgress? Isn't that the point of libertarianism? That if people don't like me, they don't have to interact with me. But they do not have the right to stop me from interacting with them. They do not have the right to stop me from trying to make new friends and, say what I gotta say and preach my message. They don't have the right to impede me, because that would be totalitarianism. That would be them initiating force against me. I'm not trying to initiate force against anybody. I'm just saying what I gotta say, and, you can either like it, you can dislike it. You could say, I want to get to know Jim Prophet more personally and be his friend. You could say, Jim Prophet, you want to go do something? You want to go get a coffee? Blah, 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 or things like that. But the moment you say that, no, Jim Prophet, you can't be here. You are not allowed to access this land. You are not allowed to use this, then that becomes violence. That becomes the use of force to enforce your concept of property. So, in fact, you don't care about rights. And you certainly don't care if you use violence. There is no initiation of force principle. The only principle is that if you feel entitled to violence through proxy of your magical sky god property, then all is well in the world. You can do whatever the fuck you want to, so long as you own property. And if Jim Prophet wants to have rights, he's got to magically find property of his own. And the only way to do that is through violence as well. So in other words, you promote terrorism. You promote the idea that the only way you can have rights is if you kill people, if you manipulate people, if you exploit their labor, if you cheat, lie, steal, and do other criminal behaviors in order to obtain the status in order to have rights to begin with. Because I guarantee you, in a modern society, you're not going to work your way into property. You're not going to, just miraculously come across it. The only way you're going to have property is if you're born into it or you hit the lottery or something. So that means only a few people actually have rights. And that's only to the extent their property allows them to have. Those with even more property than them get to trample all over them and tell them what the fuck to do.